Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding NCL. I'm your host Johnny and it's Friday. I hope you've had an amazing week and you're off to an amazing weekend. Friday evening or afternoon or whatever time it is in the day where you are. I hope that's going to be amazing too. Even more amazing. Today we'll be coding once again and as it usually happens, it will be based off something that was inspired by the successes and struggles we had in the previous live stream, which was a super exciting one. If you weren't around for Tuesday, we did a stream with Supabase where we managed to do some generative Q&A and have a chatbot, JohnnyBot, answer questions after being fed some of my video transcripts. So I do tutorials about SvelteKit, Svelte, React, frontend, backend, full stack, JavaScript, TypeScript, that sort of thing. Some of those transcripts I've fed with a GitHub Action to the Supabase headless vector search, and then we made a frontend which talks to a nets function, a Supabase sets function, to search for a reply, to try to understand the context of what the person here is asking and answer based on my videos. We got quite far. So if I do ask, how do I do page transitions? We should get an answer. After it thinks about it for a bit, it starts typing, and indeed we get an answer based on what I've actually said in a video. So it's not going to be like a made up hallucination answer that ChatGPT sometimes does. It should be something legit. Like I wrote this down and my videos are, I have to say, well researched, and I try to put just the juice, just the things, the essentials that you need to know on them, double check them and everything, do a lot of research, like triple check my work, and then put them down. And then SvelteKit has a break in the release and I have to update it. But that's by the by. If you were to watch a video from me, you get the same amount of information as you do from this reply. Kinda. But it's really good. I'm impressed. You can actually go to johnnyfi.com/ask and play around for yourself. See if it does actually come up with good answers. It only has, I think, the 6 latest videos that I've done. So it doesn't have everything I've ever done in my life, but we'll get there. Maybe every stream I will be making a point to upload one more transcript and improve on the UI and all those things. But nobody told me improve this and improve the UI or the backend or how it works with server-side streaming and all of that. So instead, I'm gonna go on a curiosity journey because we worked a lot with GitHub Actions to make this work. Supabase has created this embeddings-generator GitHub Action that I had a look at during the live stream, and I found it surprisingly understandable. And I figured maybe we need to create one of our own, because what I also want to have in this app and lots of others, every time I make a blog portfolio with blog type functionality site, this could be useful. Lots of people keep their content in markdown and they want it to render in a nice UI. Very often you'll use like a static site generator or you'd use something like Next.js that can also be a static site generator as well. So on the build step, it will read your markdown files and render static HTML, which is usually super fast to render, but also about as fast as if you are dynamically rendering something, but serving a cast response. So it's not the end of the world if it's not pre-rendered, so long as you have good casting strategies. That's an aside. What I'm thinking today is, what if we had a GitHub Action, kind of like this one, which looks at a folder with all our markdown files, and instead of feeding them to the embeddings headless vector search, I actually put them in our Supabase DB for public consumption. So if all our content ends up in a regular posts table, and then my website can actually read from that public Supabase post table and render them on the screen. This, if it's cast, it's about as fast as if we pre-render everything. And you also get things like starring or liking posts be easier because you already have the exact post in your database, and then you can have a one-to-many relationship with user likes. You don't have to do make up an ID or do likes based on a slug, and you're not really sure if they're going to match up with your markdown. And you can do comments and that sort of thing more easily if your posts are in a database and not in markdown. So we'll try to make this custom GitHub action as well. If you're not familiar with GitHub actions at all, we use them in every project. Nowadays, it used to be other companies would offer things like this. You'd often use them for testing with something like Circle CI, where whenever you push something to the main branch or a PR, you'd run some automated steps to ensure that the tests are passing, or that your application is built from like source TypeScript or whatever you had back in the day into what you're actually be deploying to the browser, that sort of thing. So it's automated actions. In the Generative project, we usually live stream development on. We have GitHub actions to run playwright tests, so that's browser tests, and node tests, some fast unit tests. And as well, the other action we talked about, we generate embeddings based on markdown files now. So GitHub actions are a way to automate stuff that you don't want to manually do every time on your repo, based on what gets uploaded, what gets deployed, that sort of thing. And there is a huge marketplace of actions, even if it's called marketplace, they're free. I haven't come across a paid one yet, but there are some extreme cases where maybe you won't find an action that does exactly what you want. And finally, that's what we'll try to do today. We could create a script in our Zonify repository that does read the markdown files and then uploads them to the database, and we manually execute it, or we have something else executed, and that's all. But I do think there is value in creating our own GitHub action, because first of all, we learn. I love to learn, especially things I don't really know. This is the most fun I have when learning. And second of all, well, we may make it to a stage where other people are having markdown blogs and using Supabase, and they're like, this is a good idea, Johnny, let's get to it. Open source for the win. So that's a reason why you want to create GitHub actions. I think we've talked about what we're doing today. We've talked about the generative Q&A functionality in our app. Check it out yourself. I think it's high time we start with our GitHub JavaScript action. So there are three different types of GitHub actions, as I understand it. JavaScript runs on Node, and Node 20 specifically is the latest one you can use. Docker actions, where you run on Docker images, and composite actions, which can have multiple steps. We may switch to a composite action in order to use Bun, the cool runtime that's popping off right at this time. But we'll see. We'll start as a JavaScript action. There is quite a lot of material on how you need to do it. If you're familiar with a packagization, I guess it's kind of like that, where there are some instructions. You need to have a repository that looks like this. It needs to have a packagization, but also it needs to have an action YAML, and it needs to have this, and this. Many steps that I was thinking we'd need to go through. But actually, what I found out in the end is that they do have two template repositories, one for JavaScript and one for TypeScript. So let's just start from there and save a few steps, see what we end up with. So, is this the one? This isn't the one. Let's open the TypeScript action template repository and switch to the desktop view so my face will be smaller. And the code will be larger. Microsoft seems to be having some trouble paying the bills because GitHub has been a bit slow today. If GitHub doesn't work, then we just call it a day and we all go home. Oh, wow. All right, stream saved. So if you haven't used template repositories, they actually have a special button here, use this template. So let's create a new repository. Let's call it, what do we call it? Markdown to Supabase. Why not? So this is a GitHub action to sync your markdown files to your Supabase database. Let's create a repository. And this repository should be getting quite a lot of stuff for us, like TypeScript setup, prettier setup, pretty ignore setup, build steps, testing, quite a lot of stuff. So let's copy the resulting repo and go to our terminal. And git clone this. This is indeed a Git repository. It has prettier configured with every option enabled. What is this? Pros drop. They're making stuff up. It has a package.json. It has a package log because it's using npm, I guess. Say it's version 0.1. And we called it markdown to Supabase. The author is me. Doesn't need to be private. Yeah, homepage, sure. Set up those things. Well, it's not actually the homepage. It feels like this should have been auto-completed for me since I use this template, but hey. So since this is TypeScript, it has a build step and then it points to like this dist file. Why is there another license here? And ends in its node 20 or more. So maybe we can do even bolt up in node at 20. And CI test is using jest, interesting. When it bundles, it formats the code, which just runs prettier, and it also has like a sec. No one cares. There is a lint step which runs npx to run. Yes, lint. That doesn't really make sense. And then points to this. Interesting. The config, I guess, is there. Sure. And then this uses a Vercel library to compile the npm bundles somewhere. But maybe we won't need this. And that probably does something we may find in the README. Then it also makes the coverage bands. It's kind of crazy. I love tests. I love meaningful tests. Code coverage, not a good mark of quality. All. Do everything. MIT license, sure, jest is set up with TS test. Maybe if we switch to ban, we won't need any of this. This crap. This is a family channel, so apologize for the slight mean language. Types for node, blah blah blah. Sure. And what does the README say? GitHub superlinter. Don't think we'll have either of those values. blah, blah, blah. After we've used it, then we'll add more tests, I guess, and publish it in the repository, and everyone can use it afterwards. So we've done this initial setup, install the dependencies instead. Let's try to install with one and see what happens. Then we need to package the TypeScript. Then it has some tests, all of that. I guess these could be found from package.json, but they want them here as well. Inputs, milliseconds. Interesting. So for inputs, I guess we will want the default directory. Not the default directory, the documentation directory, or the post directory, the blog directory, or whatever else. It says required true, but also has a default, so is that? I'm not sure. Some languages want when it's required. Like, is it required if you cannot specify it and then it falls back to something? I'm not sure. It does say here required false and then default, so I think that's probably a mistake. And we can name this whatever. Root tier. Can also take inspiration of what the embeddings action takes. Docs root path. I guess they have an action YAML as well. And they do say required true, but has default. But let's do the same thing. Docs root path. Ooh, and we will need Supabase URL and Supabase service role key. That is true. So this is the root path of Is that too big? Maybe yes, maybe no. So the path to the root of your docs directory, which has all the markdown files you would like to sync with your database. And then in order to make the syncing work, we need the Supabase project URL and service role key. Is fair enough? Outputs. I don't think we have any outputs. We don't create any new files. We just perform an operation, and we will be printing some console logs, some logs on what has happened. And we can't say runs using node 20. And I think this will just work. So let's first bring a more sensible, prettier file. Just call it prettier.c, why not? And it ignores this directory, the node modules, so do that by default. I think the git ignore makes it ignore those things. But we also want to ignore this directory, that kind of makes sense. Why is it ignoring all these things? Wow. Who created this file? What does this have to do with a GitHub Action? The answer is nothing. Anyway, no plugins. Let's see if ban format works. Oh, ran it in the wrong window. Let's get that further out. Sure, fast and good. Did something. Does this have other comments? No, it just has initial comment. Great. No floating promises. Promising like the first file you see. It's like ESLint and TypeScript ignore. All right, so interestingly, this can only run as a GitHub Action because it's using this GitHub Actions core helper package, which makes it easy to accept this input, but I wonder how we're gonna test this in the future. But that's one of the reasons that I started from a template repository, because hopefully they are gonna have some idea of how this works. They're not collocating the tests. Horrible tests that are just mocking things and then spying whether we call them. Ensuring if you change the implementation, you have to change the test. So saving you no time and giving you no extra confidence. I guess it gives you confidence like a picture. If you took a picture of your code and you're like, oh, did my code change? No? Great, everything works. Did my code change? Oh no, like I need to do something. So no extra confidence, I'd say. So yeah, let's everything related to tests. Let's remove it and we'll do better. Not impressed. It's kind of good. What? Oh, sorry. I thought that they had a .temp.test. Why would you ignore .temp.test? I don't know. Late test, not related. CI does have a test job. Right, so this CI thing does have an interesting step where it tests the current action that we write in with something. And I guess it doesn't test it, it just runs it. It says test local action, but actually, I guess, you know, it's a smoke test whether your action does run or not. But that's, we're gonna need to think a bit harder on this. Because to test our action, if it actually persists in a database, we probably need to spin up a Supabase database there. And ideally, in a Docker container, would it be spinning up a new Supabase database? It would be clean, reset, would be running the migration. And then with run our action, and we'd expect before our action runs, there are no documents in the database, there are no records in the database, there are no posts in the database. And after we run our action, our markdown files will now be persisted in the database. And if we already had something in the database, it can also sync stuff without adding new entries. So there's a lot of things to test here, which is why I added this not well tested. Like even if we have like the one test, there is a lot of scope to make this better. Interesting, this runs Node version 18, even though they keep saying you should run more. I guess the branches are the separate releases. Is that how it works? Probably. So here we could just straight up switch this with bun, which would be nice. Who got like a PR blocked by not formatting their code correctly? My condolences. So formats, links, things that shouldn't be happening, should be happening automatically before you commit your code. And then the actual test. The CI test command that they've created. What do they do? Again? Nothing? We did delete something, but I don't think they called it CI test, so I'm not sure. We'll give it an ID. So I'm thinking that this will just be bun test in the future and no point playing around. Let's check our agenda. So we've kind of scaffolded our GitHub JavaScript action with a template repository, and I'm confident that this will kind of work, but let's switch over to bun, which I'm not confident whether it's gonna work. So here, do you really need like a million IDs? Probably not. So all of these tests, let's just do the checkout before we just released. Checkout, get the bundle set up, then we can bun install, and then we can bun test, and then we're out. And that's the end of the story. And then we can have a smoke test. Which runs the local action here with some arguments, because we do know that we're gonna need Supabase URL, and a Supabase service role key. Now I know that when I run this locally, I can start Supabase locally, I guess, just to prove it. Can add Supabase here, but first we should add a trusted dependencies key, because unlike other bundlers, Bun will not run post-install scripts and other lifecycle actions of your dependencies. It will run your packages, post-install scripts, etc., but not your dependencies post-install scripts. And Supabase does have a post-install script, which makes the executable available. So if we want the executable to be available, we need to install Supabase. So hopefully that worked. So let's remove not modules. So I did install this binary, which is excellent. So Panex Supabase start should work now. Guess not. Why not? Why not? We can debug it later and go step by step, but I have expected that here we would have Supabase, and that this post install has would have run. So in our bin, there should be a Supabase here, which it does exist. Well, now it says that the file could not be found, which is interesting. Bun clear cache. Whoa. Can I clear the cache? I'm not sure. I will try once more. Did I add it to the correct file? Yeah. And I did say it added the binary, but the file that it was empty. Maybe I messed it up by killing the installation step. There was an issue. Maybe I'll be able to find. What's this? Let's have figured this out. Unpim cast remove. Maybe the band lock. Now it looked like it did more with Supabase this time. All right, cool. So for that to work, we need to do bannex Supabase init. Yes. We're jumping ahead to another step. I just want to prove that we can do Supabase stuff. And what did we actually do? We create the Supabase directory. The config says that the project ID is this. I don't think we'd be messing with anything here. But if I run bannex Supabase start now, it should start a Supabase database for this project, and it will give me service role keys, unknown keys, and a project URL. And if I can run this in the Docker container, in the GitHub Action, then there may be a way for me to get the URL and the keys and use them in the GitHub Action, say, right, fresh database, run the migrations, use my action with this URL, well, maybe not this URL, and this service role key, and see if it works. So for now, I will copy in our GitHub Action our CI thingy. So this URL is this, but we should get this dynamically. And the service role key is this, and we should get this dynamically because I'm pretty sure that this changes every time and it's not the same. So we need to figure it out. Code quality analysis as a cron job. Anyone cares about this? Linter. You're doing this somewhere else. Super linter. Wait a minute. The super linter. What is super linter? What does it do? All right, let's keep it, I guess. But we need a GitHub token. Do we need this? Probably not. This is a special file. Blah, blah, blah. So we may not need this because I'm thinking if we had a JavaScript action, we wouldn't be able to use it with ban because I don't think you're able to use like ban here. Not that cool. But with a composite action, let's try to see what we can do. Yeah, you can just see the steps. So if we say runs using composite, we don't need to specify what our main file is, but we will probably need to bring in bun like this. And if we do that, then we should be able to run like bun main.ts without build step, which I think would be cool, because as you can see, like a lot of this is all about building up your action. So maybe we don't need this thing about the linter. Ugh, just looking at this makes me cringe. Get that out of here. Dependable. Interesting. Let's keep that. No badges, please. Not this directory. Which means that our git ignore will never had this directory. This neither, not needed. And yeah, I guess the question is, why is there an index and a main? Not sure. What does the index file do? Would we be able to use core again? Not sure. So maybe let's say that our action actually has an index.ts. And then let's try to do the same thing. So if we were to do source index, should get a hello world. Great, it runs without the build step, and I think the action is gonna run like this if we actually push, which is great. How would we test this? How would we make this run locally? because I'm thinking I want to keep running on this terminal to test it, to test things. But maybe the only place where we run core is on the index actually. So I'm thinking import code from actions, and here we can get input. And we can see what input we actually want here. Remind ourselves, so in our action YAML, we want 3 things. This, and this. So in our index, we can say almost there. And all of them are required. Yes. Because at this level we would be past the default if we don't have it. Imagine. And I'm doing all of this here because I am gonna use this run action that I am gonna say is taking 3 parameters. And the 3 parameters are indeed gonna be these 3 strings. And then we can console log docs root path, Supabase URL, like all of these. So I wonder if we just run index thing. It does fail, but how do I pass the input? So if I say I'm gonna bring this here and run all of this. But my question remains, can I run this index file from the terminal, my terminal, and say these are going to be the arguments? Like how does get input work? Process env. It's prefixed with input. Didn't quite work. Name. And nope. Oh, not true. I'm doing all of this so we can just test main by testing the run function, getting this input. But I'm just curious about how this works. So if this was just docs, like could we have like an input docs? Nope. Ah, yeah, it would work. It would actually work. Does that function get the docs root path like this? Main. Yeah. I skip this. Anyway, doesn't matter. We won't be running the terminal all the time. We're gonna kinda maybe TDD this. The thing is, let's have a main.test.ts, and we're gonna use bun test for this. So we need to bring in our action. No action, sorry. I'm blind. What are we gonna do? We need to bring in the bun types is what I wanted to say. Here's config. Let's look at my other project. Let's look at any test here. We're gonna be importing expecting it from bun test. That's what we want. But then this is not gonna be defined. So we need to bun install dev dependency. Bun types, I think is what we want. Yeah. And with that done, if we go to our tsconfig, what is this? I see no harm in keeping this. Now if we go to our test file, this doesn't complain, now we know what this is. And then it crashes, it errors when no Supabase URL is provided. really a meaningful test. But we bring in this run method and we say great. Does it have an example of catching the error? Test. Run test. Error. Have anything on error? So we can say that we expect this method to throw error. So throw, yes. Need to catch this. And if we ban test, received function did not throw. I guess because the empty string does not throw. We're also like catching the error, interestingly enough. I guess we won't be doing it here, because in index we said failed here. So if we have none of those, we don't want to try anything, we just want to log out to error out. All right. It's saying that it didn't throw. So if we don't do this, what happens? That's a regular thing and it doesn't throw. If we do throw, this async. So is it like to reject? And it's a promise. Must be like rejects. This is a sync. We need to await this. Oh, it thinks we don't need to await this. Maybe this can just be here. Now grab it. Expected value must be a function. What's it saying? I thought there was like a to reject with or something. Expect this. It is on the correct level. And this is a sync, so it is a function. Maybe vtest has a different syntax. Let's have a look. Yeah, so that looks like what we're doing. Almost exactly. Wait, expect. Anything for async tests? Not really. So the syntax looks correct, but what's the problem? Expected value must be a promise. Must be a function of what? Wait, that it doesn't like. Nope. In Vitess it feels like that would work. I assume that this is just an alias, so it wouldn't change anything, but you never know. It does get executed and eventually it fails. So what's the deal with that? Watch mode we can add. Surely. This returns a promise. Okay, this is happy as well. eventually it runs. But what does it like? Expected value must be a function. Throw. All right, so let's do it the other way. All right, so even though we had to do it the weird way out, it does error out how we want it. If we don't error out, then we get a failing test. Imagine. Guess not. How do we know to wait? If you haven't seen a test fail, never trust it. I guess that's another thing, like, are we picking the correct method? And it looks like we are. Sure. So I think don't want mocks. Ah, it never goes to this case. Fail. Can we, like, say fail if we make it to here? It makes it there and then it makes it happen. There must be a way to make that fail. Just don't know how. Just like in the test. To do skip. Maybe that's good enough. Wow. So, this is erroring out. Sure. So now, if we add the error we had here, we have a passing test, I imagine. Of course, we need to put it here. All right, we made it happen. So without this error thrown, then it fails. And with error thrown, it doesn't. All right, we've made it somewhere. I don't think we'll make it all the way to creating the GitHub action, given how much we've done so far. But how much have we done so far? We are kind of using bun for this, indeed. We haven't proven that our GitHub action will actually work, but I think it will. I think it will. Just uses this, runs this, we're good to go. Does it include node modules? The answer is no. Maybe that's what that packaging thingy in C that Vercel package was doing before. Let's read more about that. Let's learn something about that. Oh, we still depend on it. There's YAML. What's that do? Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing. Vercel NCC. That's something we may want to explore. And yeah, so let's see what that package does. I guess our problem is that we want to install node modules, which we can just do. And would it work if we only install the regular dependencies? Install is what we do want to do. How can we specify to only say to the production ones? Just this. So my claim is that in this CI workflow, We actually do this, but in a different setting. So not in the CI workflow. Where do we want to do it? In the action. So install the production dependencies and then run our source index.ts. And in here, our CI workflow should be using this with a default for the docs directory and the service role key and all of that. So is there anything else we can see about login? Maybe from the embeddings directory. Oh, they do actually have a separate method for this. No, separate file, it's a separate method, sure. So they're creating a Supabase client and they're just console login, I guess. So let's keep that. When we have the migration for our local Supabase database, we can also see that with an existing markdown document and see if we update it correctly. So let's commit all of that. And say refactor. All right, what else on the README? Oh, the README, there are like tons of things actually. There should be like a how to use. What is the Supabase team doing? Just copy all of this, delete all of this. We may have maintainers at some point. Cannot find it yet. Does it run on the latest? Yes. That's gonna be vars Supabase URL. Something like that. And it's generated, yeah, public Supabase URL. Sure. Edit. All right, we've got something we can commit. And I am gonna push this because I'm excited to see if the CI is gonna run and if it's gonna try to run, if it's gonna correctly run the ban command. That may be it for the day, even. Right, we pushed. It crashed. We crashed. Unit test run. That's nice. Action smoke test failed. Mapping values are not allowed in this context. Mapping values are not allowed in this context. Should the width have been deeper? Probably. Not really. need this. I'm not gonna print anything to that play part. Do they have a test for this? So steps, uses with. Unnamed steps. I don't think that play apart. Jobs, smoke test. Uses with. Looks correct to me. Maybe it's flipping out because of the slashes. Let's try it again. You never know. But yeah, this looks fine. Like this YAML. But clearly, I guess we have this YAML, the other YAML to worry about. And we're not using a JavaScript action, we're using a composite one, just to complicate things. We've done this, we don't care about this. We've done this, we may care about this. Expected type when reading this. So it's in the action, it's on line 23. On this one though. Using composite uses, maybe that's the thing they don't like. Oh yeah, we need the steps. Oh Johnny, you silly goose. Maybe we need those curlies as well, who knows. Those quotes. Hasn't filled yet. Required property missing shell. Sure. But it feels like we're getting there. And some defaults to shell. This would have been easier if we didn't choose to use bun, but part of the fun is this. Here's Joel in the chat. Nice wave emoji. Appreciate it. Now it's taking more than 10 seconds, so surely it's doing something. No. Right, input required and not supplied. You didn't supply this. Docs root path. Is that true? I guess it is, but we're saying that it defaults something. We're saying it defaults to this. How does that work? If the action is written using a composite, then it will not automatically get this input. How? Ugh, you get it like this. I see. So it doesn't magically get those inputs, which is sad, but we'll manage to do it. Inquire. There are so many packages for this. So minimist and commander. I have used commander before. Have I used minimist? I'm not sure. Commander is super popular. Do I need to bring this in? No. So what will I actually be doing? It feels like we cannot use this anymore. But we can do path, CLI, path bun, path file, and then whatever the arguments are. We can still use core, I suppose. Will I ever remember what this does? Not really. But here, we know that our action should be running this with inputs, inputs, inputs. First one should be talks root path. Then it's going to be Supabase URL. Then it's going to be Supabase service role key. Let's see if that did something exciting. So a lot of this is because we're insistent in using bun, but we have gotten rid of quite a few steps, like to set up test, to set up the TypeScript bundling. I think that's the biggest thing, like bundling the source code into a distributable and then running the distributable. That's a lot of effort and a lot of moving parts to take care of. So if all that happens is that we need to do this inconvenience where we manually pass in the inputs, not bad. Oh, it actually worked. Yeah, went to the default, we passed this in, and the Supabase service role key, star, star, star. Why is it star, star, star? Is it because it thinks that it's a secret, so it's not going to print it? There may be like some automatic functionality there. Or yeah, I'm choosing to believe that this is because it figured out that this is a secret and didn't want to print it, which is fair enough. All right. So again, like we got rid of quite a lot of things and steps, including this Vercel packager, because we're not bundling anything, we're not really using Node 20. And we are using bun, not bundling. Let's keep a format one, it's fine. We're not packaging, we're not watching, we're not doing any of this. So the only script we have is format. And yeah, that kind of feels good. And it feels like in the next episode, we are actually going to do the thing that we wanted, which is read markdown files and try to sync them with our Supabase database. But I feel like I learned a lot about writing your own GitHub action. Maybe in the future, they'll actually have a create JavaScript action where you can select runtime to be bun. So you get only the benefits of not having the compile step. But not the inconvenience of having to pass along our arguments ourselves. We can just point it to a file and it will run it. So that'd be neat. So potential for next time is that we keep going. We definitely do not get to the bonus stuff, and actually make the GitHub action that we want to publish, where we read a test markdown file. We read a test markdown file that includes some formatter in the beginning. Then we try to figure out whether the file has changed since last time we read it. Then we create a Supabase migration with a simple migration that other people can use, and scaffold a database table like the one we're gonna have. So a post table, maybe you can have a blog posts or blogs table or transcripts table, whatever you want. We'll have something to make your life easier. And then we're gonna do the thing that we really want to do all along, which is after we've read the markdown, we're gonna paste this to the database. Then we're gonna figure out how to test it. We've talked a little bit about this. We're in this CI step where we are running the local action here. Maybe like we can have a test that executes and confirms, did these records, did these markdown files make it to the first database, that Supabase database that we spun up. But that depends on whether there is an easy way to spin up a Supabase database. Here, I imagine that there must be like another GitHub action or something that we can bring in and easily spin up a Supabase DB, but that's something I'll research offline. So, likely candidates if we keep up with custom GitHub action work. Remember, we still have the Zonify website. We have lots to do here, including Stripe memberships and keeping our work with the generative Q&A. Let me know what you want to see, because I love doing things that other people find useful. I just think knowing how GitHub Action work increase your value as an engineer, like not just front ends, like full stack engineer, like I can even do GitHub Actions. So hopefully this was useful for you. That's gonna be it for today. I hope you have lovely, lovely weekends. Enjoy your lives, and I'll see you around.